Welcome to Finding Holiness, where we delve into timeless Torah wisdom, revealing the sacred in everyday moments. Join us on a journey to elevate your spirituality and discover holiness in every aspect of life. I'm your host, Rabbi David Kadosh, and together, let's embark on a path of spiritual exploration. I hope you enjoy this next episode. Okay, we are live. Welcome, everyone, to another Parasha class. Happy to be here again. The Ainara, nice crowd, good food, and we learn some Torah. Nothing better. The week after we read about Matan Torah, we speak about Parashat Mishpatim. Parashat Mishpatim is known to be the parasha that is filled from Aleph to Taf with civil laws, the laws that have to do ben Adam lahavero, different decrees, halachot, that have to do between how one man treats his friend, or not his friend maybe. These laws were taught on Har Sinai, as we're going to see. It was not just something that was, okay, now that you got the Ten Commandments, here's a... No, on Har Sinai, the Moshe Rabbeinu taught these laws. Including in this, of course, is the opening parasha, which is the parasha of Eved Ivri. Eved Ivri is a Jewish slave, the Jewish bondsman. Someone who Bet Din sold to work as if he was a slave. He worked for someone. That's going to be our main topic for today. And he works for this man for 6 years. In the 7th year, he gets set free. And if he chooses to remain with his master, then he gets a piercing in his ear. A hole is bored through his ear by the door, and therefore he remains there le'olam, ba'abado le'olam. In addition to the Eved Ivri, there are payments for hurting someone, payments for damaging others, a loss of work, employment, could be tsar, pain, it could be busha, boshet, which is embarrassment or humiliation, medical expenses. All these things are discussed in this week's parasha. There's a mitzvah to return lost items. There's a mitzvah of how much a thief has to pay if he gets caught. Does the amount change if it was an animal or if he slaughtered the animal? 5 times for a cow, 4 times for a sheep, he has to pay in addition. Laws on how to treat converts, laws on how to treat orphans, laws on how to treat widows with kindness, lending money without interest, not cooking meat and milk together. There's also some discussion about Shemitah. That's a big chunk of the parasha. Of course, there's damages with ox or donkeys, or if someone falls in a pit, how much he has to pay. Big, all of what we're learning now in Daf Yomi, really, Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, and Baba Batra is this week's parasha. The end of the parasha kind of goes back to what happened unchronologically in last week's parasha. What happened 2 days before the Torah was given on Har Sinai? 2 days before, Moshe Rabbeinu told the Jewish people to prepare themselves by becoming tahor, and he also taught them some other mitzvot. And 1 day before the Torah was given, Moshe built a mizbeach, and there the Jews famously said, Na'aseh v'nishma. The phrase Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen, is found in this week's parasha. And Hashem rewarded each Jew with 2 heavenly crowns, one for Na'aseh, one for Nishma. And the day after the Aseret HaDibrot were given, Moshe went up to Shamayim for 40 days and 40 nights, so Hashem could teach him the Torah. That pretty much sums up the Torah, but like the parasha. But like I mentioned, I want to focus today on this opening mitzvah of Eved Ivri. The parasha speaks a lot of civil laws, monetary laws. Choshen Mishpat, one whole section of Shulchan Aruch is devoted to this parasha. And the beginning, like we said, is a Jew being sold as a slave. How to create a functioning, healthy society. It would probably be more appropriate to speak about the laws of loaning money, certainly not with interest, the mitzvah to lend money when you see somebody in need, and how many times the Gemara goes at length to talk about why it's important to lend money and be happy to lend money. Society needs to run smoothly, and just like an engine needs oil to run smoothly. An economy can only run when there's lending, and that's what we see. There's lending, there's investments. Maybe talk about the laws of a watchman, the shomrim. Shomer chinam, someone who's watching for free, someone who's watching for payment. Again, found in this week's parasha. I would assume that these laws are slightly more applicable and maybe even more important than a Eved Ivri, a Jewish slave. So what is the peshat? What is the idea behind this mitzvah of a Jewish slave who now has to work for his master for 6 years, or until the Shemitah year comes, or until Yovel comes? What exactly is the meaning? Why is this chosen to be the forefront of the parasha? I want to tell you today a chidush by the Ramban. The Ramban writes at the beginning of the parasha, Nachmanides, that Parashat Mishpatim is an explanation, or he calls it a harchava, an elaboration of the Aseret HaDibrot, of the 10 Commandments. It's connected to what we read last week. And he says that the first mitzvah, the first parasha of this week, which is Eved Ivri, the Jewish slave, has a direct correlation to the first of the 10 Commandments. The commandment of Anochi Hashem Elohecha, I am Hashem your God who took you out of Egypt. And the Midrash tells us, Baboker nitna Torah uba'erev mishpatim. The Torah was given in the morning on the 6th of Sivan, and already by night, all these laws, these civil laws were being given. And these two things are very much connected. Rashi, as I quoted earlier, said, Ve'ele ha-mishpatim. He asked, why does it say Ve'ele? And these are the laws. It should have just said, these are the laws. The word Vav always comes to connect something in the past. If it just said Ele, it comes to exclude something. But Ve'ele comes to include what was said in the past. And Rashi famously says, Mahar Rishonim Sinai, just like the 10 Commandments were given on Har Sinai, on Mount Sinai, so too these civil laws, as you think they're obvious, still they were also given on Har Sinai. So what is the connection between Eved Ivri and this first commandment of Anochi Hashem Elohecha? The reason why someone gets sold as a slave to his master is because of Geneva, because of theft. It's a punishment for theft. Why is that a fitting punishment for Geneva? Because Geneva, dishonesty in money matters, stems from a person thinking that I am making my parnasa when I'm stealing, not recognizing that Hashem is the real employer. When a person thinks to himself, I can make money this way, and I can perform this shtick, and I can do a little bit of gray matter over here, he feels that he's in charge. Not being honest in money matters is a pegam, is a stain in the concept of Anochi Hashem Elohecha, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, believing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in control of the whole world. And that's why the punishment of a ganav, of someone who steals, is Eved Ivri. He now gets sold as a slave so that he should get used to the fact that he is not in control of his life. And now somebody else is going to be in control of him. His food, his water, everything that he has is now going to come from this master, this Adon. Everything that he needs is going to come from this master. He hasn't even have the time or opportunity to make his own parnasah. And he begins to learn the mindset that he is not in control, and that you hope after 6 years he will learn and apply it to his life. And therefore the parasha of Eved Ivri has a direct correlation in Shayachu to Anochi Hashem Elohecha, and that's why the end. And in fact, the end of the commandment is Asher Hotzeticha Me'eretz Mitzrayim, that I am Hashem your God who took you out of Egypt. So the Ramban writes in Parashat Bo, what was the reason for Yetziat Mitzrayim? What was the purpose of the exodus of Egypt? To understand and to internalize this concept, this notion that everything in life comes from Hashem. When all is out and you have no hope and no glimmers of hope for thousands of miles away, you can't see anything but darkness, Hashem will come there. He'll come and he'll take you out. Everything is from God. So there's a direct mamash shayachut from Eved Ivri to that of Anochi Hashem Elohecha. I read an amazing chidush in the name of Rav Siegel Shlita, who once lived in Manchester, and he talks about a person who might not be the most religious person or might not be the most learned person. He's not kovea itim, he doesn't learn Torah much. And it's not something he's going to boast about, that he is shomer Torah mitzvot. But he remembers this Gemara that tells us that the first question that they're going to ask you when you come up to Shamayim is not whether or not you set time aside for Torah learning, but rather, Nasata v'natata be'emuna. First question is, did you deal honestly in business? That's the first question you're going to be asked in Shamayim. It's a Gemara. And a lot of people are comfortable to say, yes. And it feels good. If I don't have the second question is, did you set aside time to learn the Torah? But if I can't answer that one, I guess, with confidence, but maybe the first one is that, I dealt honestly in business. And says Rav Sigal that maybe a person very often can feel confident and said, yes, but why was he honest in business? Was it because he wanted to have a good business reputation? Could it be because this way he would get more investors and more money? Could it be maybe he was scared of the taxman? He was scared of the IRS or Revenue Canada, and that's why he wanted to be good in business? Maybe he was scared to end up in jail, and that's why he was honest in business. So not always is the reason why we are honest in business has anything to do with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The question that you're going to be asked in Shamayim, Nasata v'natata be'emunah. Did you conduct business with faith, with emunah Hashem? Did you do business with emunah in mind? And that's the first question, corresponding to the Aseret HaDibrot of Anochi Hashem Elohecha. That needs to be the real reason why you conducted business honestly, because you had emunah in God that He was going to give you your parnasah. If you only do your business because you're afraid of Revenue Canada, or you're afraid of taxes, or you're afraid you're going to end up in jail, or I just want to build a reputation and get 5 stars on Google and people say that I'm a great business guy to work with, that's wonderful, and probably a big Kiddush Hashem, but it's not Nasata Be'emunah. It's not doing business having Hashem in mind. The question that you're going to be asked is whether or not you were honest in business because of your emunah. We see the same concept in an unfortunate Gemara that talks about, Gemara Masechet Kiddushin, that talks about a person who was working his land, he was dealing in business during the year of Shevi'it, during the year of Shemitah. The Gemara tells us, Noseh v'noten beperot Shevi'it, if someone conducts business during the years of Shemitah, lesof mocher metaltelim. In the end, as a punishment, he's going to be so destitute. He's going to have to sell his cell phone and his computer and his furniture, metaltelim, items. Says the Gemara, lo hirgish, if he didn't get the message that God was punishing him, and he continues to do business during Shevi'it, mocher sadotav, he now has to sell his real estate, his fields. His fields is something much bigger than your phone. Lo bata leyado, if it still didn't get the message across, ad shemocheret bito, he then starts selling his daughter, to sell my daughter to go work as a maidservant somewhere. Lo ba leyado ad shemocheret atzmo. It comes to the point that a person will just sell himself because he doesn't want to give up this business endeavor during the month of Shevi'it. What's the meaning of this? Why so harsh? The pasuk in Mishlei, Shlomo HaMelech says, Nivhal lehon Ein Ishra. He who hastens to acquire wealth, someone who runs to become wealthy, will be met with an evil eye. The Midrash on this pasuk quotes this pasuk and says, Elu sohare shevi'it. These are the people who sell merchandise and do business in the year of Shemitah. Shemitbahalin leha ashir. Because they want to get rich quickly. Today's title, Anything to Get Rich. I'm sorry for the people watching online, I misspelled it over there, I apologize. Anything to get rich. What does that mean? I do anything to get... No, it's the exact opposite. These are people that do whatever they can. Mitbahalin leha ashir. They want to get rich quickly. Ve'en meshamrin shmita. And they don't keep the shmita. This is the perfect opportunity to make money. Everybody else's land is fallow. Nobody is planted. Stock and inventory is low. You have the perfect opportunity to get rich quick by just planting, because you're going to be the only guy. You're the only guy doing it. So what's going to happen to you, says the Gemara? You're going to lose all your money. You're going to end up selling yourself as an ibid, selling yourself as a slave. And it's the same punishment to a person who steals. We let them know who's in charge. You're not in charge. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's in charge. So we're going to send you to work for a man for 6 years to educate this person that he's not in control. And that's the inyan of Shemitah. Also, again, like I mentioned, this week's parasha. Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin talks about Ha'u Talmidah Sha'al Rabbi Abhu, my Tama Dishveuta. What's the reason why we even have the mitzvah of Shemitah? Amarle, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu leYisrael. God said to Jewish people, Zir'u shesh v'ishmitu sheva, kedei sheteda she'ha'aretz shelihu. Plant for 6, and then rest on number 7, so that you know and you understand that the land is mine. The land belongs to me, because Parnasah belongs to me, because Anochi Hashem Elohecha, because I'm Hashem your God. And that's what this first parasha Mishpatim, is all about. And if it's the first, it has to be the most important. If the Torah chose this to lead off the batting order of all the civil laws, it's most important. Certainly if it correlates, like the Ramban says, with the first of the Aseret Dibrot, because we are supposed to teach a person that we have to be honest in monetary matters. Nasata v'natata be'emunah, having God in mind. And we're living today in a world of a totally new normal. You know, I remember last year reading about this company that decided to retire. This wasn't a normal company. This was a company that was involved in stealing details of credit cards. That's what they did. Company was, what do they call those companies that are in the cloud? You don't even know who they are. These are people that work from behind their screen. They decided to take it easy after making 358 million pounds, British pounds, over this little scheme that lasted just a few years, retiring from the business. You can have people that are sitting next to you in your office wearing a suit or a nice outfit behind the screen and committing the biggest fraud. And they're sitting right next to you. Millions and millions of dollars. And they decide to retire. How much money that they steal. You can never do teshuvah for that. You can never do teshuvah for that. Chachamim had to institute the concept that if a person would steal a beam and build his house with that beam, the concept takanat shavim, that you only have to give back the monetary value of the beam. Really, you have to destroy your house and take that beam and give it back. But because the Chachamim were afraid that people wouldn't be doing teshuvah, so they said, okay, what's the value of the beam? Give back the value of the beam. But that's how far. So it's impossible to do teshuvah after you steal this amount of things. So you find a person involved in business which is not transgressing halakha. You have to stand up for this guy. Because it's so rare today. It's so rare. Rav Eliashiv, Zecher Tzadik, Bekadosh Livracha, the Gadol Ador of the last generation, He would pray shaharit every morning at 7 o'clock. During some times of the year, this was very difficult to find a minyan. Why is this so? Because in Yerushalayim, there were two times for minyanim. It was vatikin, sunrise, which was much earlier, or you stay in bed later, 8 o'clock, 8:30. 7 o'clock was a very weird time. Most people were out to work already. They already prayed vatikin. But that was the time that he that he prayed. And there were times where it was difficult to have a minyan. So the gabbai of the minyan thought of an idea. What did he do? He said, very simple. We're going to make a kolel from 6:30 to 7 so that people come and they study Torah. And at 7 o'clock, there's going to be a minyan. Beautiful. It was working. People were coming and they were learning for half an hour, and he would pay these people. We have similar things here in Toronto. What happened after a few months? More and more people were coming. He was struggling to pay these people. You have to pay them. So what did he do? By chance, he met the deputy mayor of Yerushalayim, and he explained to him. He goes, "Listen, I'm being all sick in a huge mitzvah. Because of this kolel, I'm ensuring that there's a minyan for Rav Eliashiv to pray at 7 o'clock. Maybe you can help me." So he went to his office. He got on the phone with the Ministry of Religion, and they made a meeting. And he said, for the sake of the Gadol Ador, that the state is going to support this kolel. They put aside funds to support this small little kolel for 30 minutes. Rav Eliashiv knew nothing about this until one day he gets a check in his mailbox. And he opens up and he sees some money over here. He goes, "What's happening? What's going on? I'm being supported by the Ministry of Religion." What is that? So he asks the Gabbai, "Do you know anything about this?" He goes, "Yeah, because we wanted to get a minyan for you, to guarantee a minyan for you at 7 o'clock. We opened this kolel. It was getting hard for me to pay all the abrechim. So we got, Baruch Hashem, we got the Ministry of the state to help support. Rabbi Yashiv says, "I don't want it." Gives it straight back. What right do I have to take public money for my own personal use? Public money for me? I don't want it. That's straight thinking. It's honesty. You have to listen to these stories and think, not everything that everyone does means that we're supposed to do it. There was a story brought down in the olden days of Gateshead Yeshiva. Gateshead Yeshiva in England was one of the great places, Makom Torah there was. In those days, you would buy a train ticket one way from Gateshead to London for £50. But if you bought a return ticket, haloch v'chazor, it would be £51. £51. So what was the whole thing? What would you do? You would buy the return ticket for the extra pound, and then people would go up and put up a sign in yeshiva and sell that return ticket for like £15 or £20. Right? You're not going to pay 50. If you only need it one way, you're not going to pay 50. You're going to pay 15. That guy pockets £14. Everyone's happy. So once there was a Talmid learning with his Rebbe in Gateshead Yeshiva, and he told me that he had to find a ticket to get to London, and that he was going to go to the station to book a ticket. So the Talmid opens up, takes out his wallet, and he gives him a ticket. He goes, "Here, I have a ticket for you. I have a ticket." He goes, No, it's okay. I'm going to go buy one. No, please, I only paid £1 for this ticket. He was probably going to sell it for £15, but for the rabbi, here's a £1 ticket. He goes, "I can't take it." He goes, "Why?" It says non-transferable. Non-transferable. That's a madriga. It's a big level to have to be drawn to that. Everybody probably that's listening to this would say, "Free ticket? Yeah, free ticket." But how many follow that rule? Non-transferable. They would never know. It's not nowadays that you would have to special barcode, QR code. They can, there's no way that you can take a screenshot. Impossible. They're very advanced now with this stuff. It's just a ticket. It's non-transferable. But to this, Rav, it's non-transferable means non-transferable. If I use this ticket, it's stealing. And that these were the levels of some of these tzaddikim. Someone once came to Dayan Abramsky, Zecher Tzadik Vekadosh Livracha, big Gaon, Dayan, one of the great Dayanim in Europe. And he went to ask him a question, similar idea. Back then, I don't remember this, plane tickets were written by hand by a travel agent. I remember them really badly printed, right? But I don't remember written by hand. Maybe some of you remember that, written by hand. So he went up to the Dayan to ask him if he can change the date of the ticket from the 3rd of the month to the 8th of the month by just filling in the 3 into an 8. But he would make sure that there was empty seats in the flight, that he wasn't taking somebody else's plane ticket. So I don't know, the story goes that the Dayan said it's mutar, al pi halacha. He says mutar al pi halacha. However, he says, and again, I don't know why he said mutar, but he says mutar al pi halacha. But he says, if you do this for a plane ticket, then what do you think is going to happen in other parts of your life? What is going to happen when you start, other areas with your kids and with your family? So he said, don't do it. Al pi halacha, it's allowed, but don't do it. And the kid understood. There was this big tzaddik. He was the rabbi of the Oberlander Jews, which was today Slovakia. Passed away in 1957. Rav Michal Ber Weissmendel. I say this over. I wouldn't repeat this over if I didn't read it, because this is a sensitive topic. He said something very frightening. He said, in 1933, there were just under 1 million Jews living in Germany. And he writes that almost 95% of the Jews managed to escape some way or another before the war. And not only did they get out, but they managed to take most of their money with them. And he writes how he remembers his grandmother telling him how they would convert their money, their assets, into diamonds, and they would swallow the diamonds or put the diamonds in other places that are easy to hide. And that's how they escaped from the country with wealth. But the Polish Jews, again, I would not say this if it was not written, but the Polish Jews, they lost all their money. And not just their assets, but even their homes, and even those that survived the war, they could not get it back. They had to start from zero. And he would say the reason, he said in Germany, although there were many Jews that were assimilated amongst the Goyim, and many intermarried and had a lot of problems with their religiosity and observance of Torah and mitzvot, but when it came to monetary matters, they were extremely honest. The money was theirs. It belonged to them. There was no shticks. There was no gray matter. There was no weaving around the corner to try to do things. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu arranged it that the money that they took out was theirs. But in Poland, they were doing a whole bunch of things, non-kosher things. And for years and years and years, they would find way to hustle money, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu returns every money to the right place. Hashem, there's a super duper computer up there in Shamayim, where Hashem has a master cheshbon account of every single penny where it belongs. And it's a pachad. It's frightening to think that we can do these things and think that we're going to gain, and ultimately it's not going to happen. When you think this way, it's a lack in Anochi Hashem Lohecha. It's a lack in the first commandment, the first of the Aseret HaDibrot. Once it was a person who was approached with an investment opportunity, and he was given the brochure, a fancy brochure, all this. Okay, looks at it for 30 seconds, and he says, "No, I'm not interested." He goes, "Someone told me to give it to you. Should I throw it out?" No. He goes, "Don't throw it out. It costs some money. Maybe the person can give it to somebody else." Right. So the guy goes back. He gives it to the where he got the brochure from. A few weeks later, he meets this guy who turned down the investment opportunity, and He goes, I want to tell you, you want to know why I didn't even bother to look and I wasn't interested? He said, I saw it was a very big investment and maybe even very profitable. But it turns out that the main funders of this investment was the BAE, British Aerospace, one of the biggest companies in the world till today, who produce tanks and guns and bullets. And he said, I don't feel comfortable to put my money in something connected with things that kill people. I don't feel comfortable. And that's how he looked at it. Because to him, I have my faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To him, that's what's most precious to him, is knowing that his parnasah and his money come from clean places. I read a beautiful idea today of Rabbi Mark Angel, the very leading Sephardic thinker in America. He quotes the Kutzker Rebbe, who offers a very imaginative scene relating to Har Sinai and what took place there. He says, imagine you have all the Jewish people that are gathering to receive Hashem's Torah, and then you have a group of elitists decide that they're going to leave in the middle. And they ask him, why are you leaving? He said, why should I bother listening to mitzvot that we are not allowed to murder, or not allowed to steal, or commit adultery? We get this. We know. You're not allowed to kill. You're not allowed to commit adultery. It's pashut. I don't need to sit here and listen to this. But then HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells these elitists to come back to Har Sinai. And he said, you have to listen to these commandments. Why? Because you might not murder, and you might not steal, and you might not commit adultery. But sometimes you have these thoughts inside, in your hearts. And they need to hear from God that these ideas are reprehensible. And that you have to live moral and upright lives. And as you study Parashat Mishpatim and you learn about the ethical details and the practical everyday moral behavior that we are supposed to treat one another, a person can also argue, why do I need to learn this? Why do I need to know? I know, okay, if I damage somebody, I got to pay him back. Or if I cause injury to somebody, I got to pay him for loss of employment. Or loans, I shouldn't loan with interest and be nice. Or treat the orphan with respect and love him. But okay, we can figure these things out on our own. But everybody needs to be reminded of these commandments, of being upright and honest. Because some people tend to overthink and not focus on why they're so important. Because we get these moral dilemmas and moral conflicts constantly in our lives. Should we make a profitable deal, even though there's a little bit of dishonesty? Should we try to cause damage to someone we dislike, even though it might transgress a basic Torah law? And we try justifying these things. Even when the behavior is destructive or morally dishonest. So he brings down a play. Supposedly this play I never saw this play. The play was taken from a book called All My Sons. And it was based on a true story. Anyone here heard this about this play, All My Sons? So it portrays a family that is coping with a very, very deep secret. The head of this family, his name is Joe Keller. And he was a manufacturer for engines of airplanes. And during World War II, the government needed a lot of war material, and this man's business boomed. And in the midst of all the production of these engines for airplanes, there was a batch of engines that came out with slight cracks in the engines. And this man, Joe Keller, covered up these cracks superficially so that it's not visibly noticed. And he sold them to the government. And these malfunctioning engines cost the lives of 21 pilots. And when the government investigated the matter, they arrested Keller, but he managed to be exonerated because he shifted the blame to his partner. The partner was imprisoned, and Keller and his family continued to live well. And Keller's son, Chris, totally believed in the innocence of the father. But the ugly truth could not stay buried forever. And Chris became suspicious about the claims of his father, of his father's claiming that he's innocent. And he finally confronted him. And I quote for you how the play goes. When Joe, the father, confronted Chris, he writes, "You're a boy. What could I do? I'm in business. A man is in business. 120 cracked. You're out of business. You lay 40 years into a business and they knock you out in 5 minutes. What could I do? Let them take 40 years? Let them take my life away? I never thought they'd install them. I swear to God, I thought they'd stop him before anybody took off. Chris, I did it for you. It was a chance and I took it for you. I'm 61 years old. When would I have another chance to make something for you? 61 years old, you don't get another chance, do you?" That's the script of the play. And then after that admission, everything spiraled downwards. Joe Keller commits suicide. And Keller seemingly lived a happy life, successful life, knowing that he was responsible for selling defective engines that killed 21 pilots. And he just threw the blame on his partner. So he maintained this illusion of innocence. And once that illusion was destroyed, so was his life. He had nothing else to live for. How did he manage? How did he manage to keep that illusion for so long? How did he sleep at night knowing that there are terrible things happening across the ocean that he was directly responsible for? And like many people, the answer is because Joe was able to lie to himself. He was able to block out feelings of guilt. He was able to shun feelings of responsibility. But the truth does come out eventually. And the consequences were devastating. And that, in essence, is what the Torah reminds us, not just in this week's Perashah, but throughout. The willingness and the importance to strive to be good people and upright people, to overcome negative temptations. No one should think that these lessons are not relevant or not needed. Happy is a person that serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu with clean hands and with a pure heart. And that's the idea. Mitbahalin lehashir. All these people wanted was to jump at the opportunity to make a good buck because nobody else was doing so. Everybody else was following the laws of Shemitah. Who's going to know that I planted a few seeds over here? No one will know. No one will know. I'm going to go sell them in the market. Where does this guy get all this? And he'll be rich. He will become rich. Anything to become rich, to make money. Until the Gemara says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will just say, no, thank you very much. And if he doesn't figure it out, he'll sell his metaltelin, he'll sell his objects, he'll sell his fields, his real estate, until he has to sell himself. People want to get rich quickly, and they'll do anything that they can to get there. And sometimes we have to take these ideas to, and know this is mamash a lacking in emunah b'Hashem. Eved Ivri, the lesson of Eved Ivri is a lacking in Anochi Hashem Elohecha. Like the Ramban says, we have to ask ourselves the whole time when we conduct our business, Anochi Hashem Elohecha, nasata v'natata be'emunah. This is the message of Eved Ivri, who's lacking in the Anochi Hashem Elohecha. He did a geneva, he stole, he was dishonest. And Hashem says, you were dishonest, you thought you were in charge. I'm going to show you who's in charge. I'm going to put you under the hand of a master where you're going to have no say. And you have to listen to everything he tells you to do for 6 years. Mamash for 6 years. When do you get out free? 7th year. 7th year. This means that because then you will see what it is. we prefer to avoid these things. We want to train ourselves to be makir, to recognize the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu from day one. So we have to remember that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a cheshbon of everything in life. We are Jews, we are responsible, we have to mechazik ourselves and the generation of people that live with us. And we keep Anochi Hashem Elokecha. We truly, truly understand what that means. That everything we do in life, whether it's business or family matters or going to everything will be based on that idea of living be'emunah. And God forbid, we don't want Hashem to take from other places. We don't want Hashem to, and to have full emunah that when something does happen as such, as like, hey, what happened over here? Why was $500 taken? Why did I have to suffer that, fender bender that's now going to cost me $400, to fix my bumper? Or why is it that, my insurance went up? All this HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chesponot. All of it is Hashem's chesponot. $400 cost you to fix that fender bender? Because you took $400 when you weren't supposed to. You didn't give enough to that guy. You took it away from somebody else. You didn't pay your tax. Whatever it was. Don't think that $400 was not exactly calculated by God. And it's just a reminder. Thankfully today we don't have Eved Ivri. We don't have people. We don't have Jewish slaves. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. But that doesn't mean that it's still not tit for tat. It still doesn't mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu won't come and exact retribution for every single penny. B'ezrat Hashem, we should, when we read this parasha this coming week of Eved Ivri, instill the ideas in our hearts, in our minds, as businessmen, as working people who every day they go out to support their family and do the best they can, and that's what everybody does. Nasata v'natata b'emunah. It's the first question you're going to be asked in Shamayim. It's not just to avoid the tax guy, revenue Canada, or to have a good reputation. It's to please HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're doing it because Hashem wants you to have faith in Him. B'ezrat Hashem should have the will and the koach and the insight to act on this the way that we should and fulfill this precious mitzvah of Anochi Hashem Elohecha in very, very special and meaningful ways. Wishing everybody a wonderful night.